I don't want to waste too much time getting into this topic. I don't even know if that's the right word. I feel it should actually be called a testimony. And I think without wasting too much time, let me start by saying this. As your sister, this has been one of those things that have happened in your life that has been a changer for me, that has helped me navigate not just through dating, but through the complexity of people, through the complexity of my own emotions and my understanding, and also being so grateful to God that I actually do have an older sister who can turn back and say, I've walked X amount of steps before you. Be careful. There's a hole there.
Yeah.
Walk to the side. Turn your body. Duck. Wait. Crouch. Be still. Don't talk. Be silent. Like, to have somebody who can go ahead of you, to just be that caution is everything. I also feel it's so funny because I've never heard this story in its entirety. I feel like even in this episode, we're still going to unpack things that I've most likely not heard before. And that's just the way we are as people. I don't know about men. I'd be interested to hear if men do the same. But as women, I've noticed it with myself, with my friends, and with you, that we do a lot of protecting of the men in our lives.
Yeah.
And it's only when the relationship is truly over that things start to come out, but in bits and pieces, as we're also trying to process it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's just get into it and see where this goes. So, let's start with, how did the two of you meet?
So, actually, I had reached a point in my life where, firstly, I wasn't saved. Okay. And when I say that, I mean, like, I had done altar call, I don't know how many times. But I look back, I'm like, no.
That wasn't it.
Girl, you were not saved. You were not. But I still spoke to God. And I remember saying very clearly to him that, and I even remember exactly where I was driving, going to work and saying, Lord, I want my forever person now. And I gave him a list. I was like, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. This is what I want. This is what I want. And I'm done messing around. I'm done. I want my forever person. I'm ready to get married now.
Yeah.
Nochal, ready to get married.
Yes.
If I look at that now, I'm like, you were not ready to get married. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it was actually a friend at work that said to me, have you tried dating sites? I was like, I'm not doing that. That I'm not doing. She talked to me about this app and how her friend was on this app and her friend was meeting people on this app. And I was like, there's apps now. What the heck? And then I was like, okay, fine. What's the app? And she was like, Tinder. I was like,
oh,
at the time it was still new.
It was new.
And I was like, oh, okay, I thought about it for some time. And eventually I was like, you know what? If I'm going to find this person, I'm going to put myself out there. And on top of that, in the same workplace, I worked with someone who was married to someone that they met
Tinder.
Online. Not on Tinder, but online.
Okay, okay.
So I was like, you know what? Let me put myself out there. Went on to Tinder. And after some time on Tinder, found someone's husband on there. I was like, I'm getting off Tinder.
Oh my gosh. It
was just
a mess.
Fully. Then I found another site. I actually don't even remember the name. And it was a paid one. And I remember so clearly being like, you know what? And this one was more detailed and it looked like more serious people were on there.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, I'm going on for a month. 1 month. I paid for that 1 month. Went on there, put my details on there, talked about how this is what I'm looking for. I'm ready now.
Yes.
First month went by. I think I met one guy, and yeah, it just will skip over that and lasted. Nothing actually happened.
Yes.
You know, and I was like, okay, month is over. I'm done. And I was like, no, but I haven't met anyone. One more month. Second month, met him on there. And I was like, okay. And also, we were matched. He's also looking for, looking to get something serious, looking to eventually get married.
As they always say.
Oh. And yeah, when we had the conversation, I was clear. I was like, listen, I'm not playing.
Yes, this is what it is. This is what it isn't.
Exactly. And
yes,
he was like, neither am I. He actually very clearly said to me, that's what he was like, all my friends are getting married and I feel like I need to settle down now. So,
and excuse me so that we don't, this doesn't go for too long. I just want to get to the meat of it, because this is going to help deliver some people. So let's move with me, please. When did you realize that this guy, or rather the situation, both actually, are just not what they seem to be? Was there a moment where you were like, boop, hold on, this is not what you said?
There were so many of those moments.
Yeah.
But it's like, how did you look
over it?
Yeah, how did I look over it? The first time, it was probably like maybe a year in.
Yes.
And I saw something on his phone that I was like,
that doesn't look kosher.
This is not it.
Yeah.
And I remember in that moment saying to him, you see, this is not what I'm here for. If this is what you want to do, there's the door.
Because at this point, he's living with you.
This is a year in. He's living with me. And I was like, and I think I hadn't built that much of a, I still had the gall to be like,
yes.
I'm still like, you know what? No.
You still had the courage.
Yes.
The courage to speak up.
You know what? It's only been a year.
Yes.
You don't have to be here if you don't want to.
Yes.
So if this is what's happening,
get out.
You can go. Oh, no. This, there was always an answer. And yeah, I took that answer and I ran with it, So there was that moment. And then there were others.
I know, because I remember the other day we were talking about this particular guy, this particular relationship, and I reminded you of an incident that you had completely forgotten. And for me, that incident was so big that it was like, how could you forget?
Yeah.
But then that just spoke to how often it must have happened.
Absolutely.
Because I remember you came to visit and we were on my bedroom floor.
Yeah.
And we were talking about something. It was like early in the morning. I think we might have even been having breakfast on the floor. We were doing something together, just having those sister discussions.
Yeah.
And I remember he called you because obviously at this time you had moved to a different city. So you were visiting.
Yeah.
And he called you and he was still in the city.
Yeah.
And he was like, he's going here, doing this and this and this. And you burst out crying and you were asking him, why is it that every time I'm out of town, you do all of these things?
Yeah.
And yet it seems when we're together, it just doesn't occur to you to take me to these places around these people.
Yeah.
Are you ashamed of me?
Yeah.
And I remember that thing breaking my heart, and breaking my heart because I was also going through my own heartbreaks.
Yeah.
I was also going through what it looked like to think you have it on lock, to think you're in this loving relationship, to think this person is proud. I remember an incident, just sidebar, where I was seeing this guy for a minute, and this was before I was saved, okay? So we were doing some really ungodly things.
Yeah.
And I remember that I was just so attached to this guy because obviously at this point we started getting very we were just having a very sexual relationship as well. And he was talking about this wedding. And this wedding kept on coming up. And I'm thinking, okay, this is exciting. I need to go and buy myself something to wear. I think at this time I might have even, I don't know if I had my clothing line. I could have had my clothes. I was just thinking about what I was going to wear to this wedding. I just want to go there looking warm. I'm going to be on his arm. Everything is about to pop.
Yeah.
And then I see on WhatsApp him at this wedding, and he's there with his date, some skinny girl. And my heart was like, it didn't even feel crushed. It felt like he took it and started kicking it around on a football field. I'm like, I don't understand, because you've made me feel like I'm just everything to you. This big, beautiful woman who is like the apple of your eye. And here you are with this itty bitty girl. And she was pretty. And I'm like, I just don't get it. Am I too fat to be around your people? I don't get it. Everything just started spinning, and I was just not okay.
You know what's so funny is we ask ourselves all the wrong questions.
Yes,
it's like, am I too... No. Why
What's
are you a liar?
What happened to you? When were you dropped on the head?
Exactly.
That you think this is a thing? No, it's absolutely true. It's true, but it also speaks to how, going back to the question about realizing when something isn't, and all the signs that point to it, and the many times we choose to turn a blind eye.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it when I was making the bed, and I was like, there are times we unconsciously do things.
Yeah.
That's one thing. But there are also times where you know something is wrong, but you choose not to deal with it.
Yeah.
You choose not to say anything about it. Case in point, dating a guy, he tells you, I want to go on a boys' trip. I'm not going to be available for the next 3 days while I'm on this boys' trip. You know that's wrong.
Yeah.
I know that's wrong.
Yeah.
If we are saying we're in a relationship, I'm accountable, you're accountable. Boys' trips, phones off, that's not a thing. That is disrespectful, not just to me, but to the relationship. But still choosing to stay, still choosing to excuse it. So, again, going back to what you were saying about realizing that, okay, it's not quite what it was or what you thought it was. Is there a definitive moment where you knew, I'm now that woman who I never thought I would be, that woman who's excusing things, who's perhaps even hiding things from my friends because you don't want them to know that at some point in this relationship that you thought could have been the rest of your life has now slipped into something it was not supposed to be. I was not supposed to be here. I was supposed to be happy.
Yeah.
This was forever. Now I'm in this mess.
Yeah.
Is there a time that you can pinpoint, or even if it isn't specific, like, can you relate to that where it started being you're keeping things from your friends? You're not saying certain things. You said you spoke about goal, having the courage to speak up, where all of a sudden you just weren't speaking up.
Yeah. There were so many of those times. But I think it's when it got to the point, I think it was around COVID, I think. And there were just too many incidents.
Yeah.
You know, too many things I'd seen that pointed towards cheating.
Oh, yeah.
And by that time, I'd convinced myself of so many things.
Yes.
I had made so many excuses. I think, it was just, and a lot of people, like most of my friends didn't know a lot of things. There was one particular friend who knew everything. And
when you say a lot of things being?
Like just every single incident. You know, when it actually starts to become embarrassing.
Like, are you talking infidelity, hiding money?
Infidelity, The hiding of the money, I think that was more near the end.
Yeah.
And by that time, I was like, actually, now you're just adding to the list and giving me more reasons to get out. Yeah. But it was really just all the different little things, the things that people call red flags.
Yes.
There were just so many of them. And I had just really, I look back and I'm like, guys, life is spiritual. Everything is spiritual.
Yes.
And yes, there was that element of me convincing myself of so many things, but there was also an element of just, there's a spiritual blindness that happens where it's like this covering that just, you can't even explain why you convinced yourself of certain things. You know? I remember one of the things was like, you know what? He's not beating me.
Wow.
He is not, he's not cheating in front of my face.
Yes.
He's with me more often than not.
Wow. Wow.
And the biggest lie I told myself was that, and to be quite honest, if I'm going to be married, this is better than nothing. A.
Wow.
B. Happy marriages belong to white people.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
And so,
oh, my word.
It's this narrative of, I look around.
Black love is tough and it's painful.
Yes. And this is the best that I'm going to get.
Yes.
God forbid.
Yeah.
But this is what I was, this is literally what I was telling myself. And so, and when I say I looked around, I was looking around at people I knew, stories I was hearing.
Yes.
Of people who were married.
Black people specifically.
Black people who were married, really financially doing really well. The stories that were coming out, I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And yet when they go out,
and
they're with people, it looks amazing. And it's, it looks very believable.
Yes.
These people are happy.
Yes.
And, they have everything. Their children are beautiful. Oh my goodness. And yet, wow, all these little things in there. And it's like, it's this or nothing.
Because at this point, which I think is what a lot of women start to feel, is I'm getting older.
Yeah.
I don't want to. Let's actually talk about that for a second, because you were with him for how long?
7 years.
So at this point, you're years in. You're maybe like 4 or 5 years in by the time you're starting to see, like you say, COVID comes, there's a lot more that is starting to unravel, because that's what it is. It starts to be that unraveling where it's like the way you wove this relationship together, either the stitches are too tight or too loose, but something is not keeping, it's not holding.
Yeah.
And even speaking to the spiritual part, I think you made mention of that time I think you woke up and you saw something. I'm trying to hint so that if I'm not supposed to say it,
oh my God,
then
we're
you can tell
very
me.
deep now. Hey, let's go.
I think
deep.
we need to go
we
deeper.
We must.
Speaking about that, what you saw, but also things being spiritual, because at some point a pastor or two got involved.
Yes.
So let's go back to, you wake up in the middle of the night and you see something.
Yeah.
What do you see?
Okay, so it's not something I saw in the middle. It's something that I dreamt.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought you saw it.
Multiple times. Dreamed
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I guess you could say saw, but saw in a dream.
Yes.
Yeah. So, when you are in a relationship with someone you're not married with.
Yeah.
We know that there are very big spiritual consequences.
Yes.
And one of them being spiritual wife, spiritual husband.
That's a thing.
That's a thing. And it's common.
Yes.
Oh
my gosh.
And so, yeah, I probably twice or three times, had a dream where we were sleeping in the bed that we were sleeping in, and this woman came in through the wall, and was in the room at I think in one of the dreams, sleeping between us. And I remember by that time, my spiritual journey, my journey with the Lord had started to gain strength.
Yes.
And so
you knew what this was.
I knew exactly what it was, and I was kicking her out. I was like, in the name of Jesus, you will get out of here, and
rebuking her,
and
yet you were outside your jurisdiction.
Yes,
you were in a situation that legally that spirit had a right to be there.
Yes, she had a right to be there. She did. And funny enough, with my constant rebuking, she did leave, but she didn't fight me. She just looked at me and walked out. And it's like,
my word.
Yeah. And I remember mentioning it to him, to be like, dude, this is what's happening while you're asleep. And I remember the shock on his face. Like, he looked freaked out, but it was like, no, this is the reality.
Do you think he was shocked because he knew? Because he's an African man.
Yes.
And from a country that spiritually, they're very awake to these things. Absolutely. I feel like we learn more from them as South Africans. So do you think the being shocked was, I've been found out, I've somehow been caught, or I've been so asleep to this spiritual element that now things are starting to catch up with me?
I think it was more of, shucks, she's more awake than I thought she was.
Oh my goodness. Lord, forgive me.
I think, looking back, I mean, in the moment, I thought he was very ignorant. He was very good
at pretending,
at seeming very innocent and ignorant and like really spiritually blind. But I believe that
he knew
more than what he let on.
Okay.
And when I look back, I think to myself, he was probably like, okay,
she's waking up now.
She's way more awake than what I thought she was. And when I look at things that started to happen after that, him then spending less time at home and wanting to work, in inverted commas, somewhere else, whereas he would generally always be working at home.
So the working, let's be clear, this isn't now a spiritual thing.
No.
We're now talking about activities he should not have been doing online.
Yeah.
And so choosing to step away from the home life because you're now asking questions, you're seeing things you're not comfortable with, and you are telling him this is wrong.
Yes. So I don't know if I was telling him this is wrong, but more like asking a lot of questions.
Because you're still trying to understand what's really going on here.
Yes. And I was seeing things that I was like, why are you on that site?
Like dating sites?
No. Dating sites.
Because I know some of them do like dating sites where it's like you're reeling women in to scam them.
No, it wasn't dating sites. We're talking now.
Okay, let's not get anybody in jail.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Kind of thing.
Okay, my gosh.
Yeah. And I'm like, how did you get in there? And why are you on there?
And is this not a crime?
Exactly. And I'd be like,
this is a crime.
I was like, I remember one day I was like, are you hurting people? Like, are people being affected by this?
No, that's not funny.
And I was just like, are other people being affected by what you're doing?
Yes.
Like innocent people.
Yes.
That have no clue. Like what is happening
here? What
here?
is happening here?
And of course there was always an answer. No, that's, no. And I took it. I took that answer. But there was always that thing that was like, I don't know, hey? But whatever answer he gave, I took it.
Something just came into my mind. I hope you don't mind my saying it. Having obviously mommy, who's always been very vocal about not living with a man before. I remember mommy saying this to us and it stuck with me. It's probably not the nicest way to hear it, but it's a way to hear it, where she said, don't ever move in with a man until you're married to him. It goes back to that, don't do wifey things for a man who's not your husband. And mom said, moving in with a man before you marry or before he marries you, or doing wifey things, is like, she said it like, why buy the cow when the milk is free? When you hear it, you're like, that's a bit of a slap over the head. But in actuality, what she's saying is, he's never going to honor you if he doesn't have to. And so knowing that mommy had all of these, you know, all of this advice, and she spoke openly with us about it. Why do you think you still chose to do it that way? And also, why do you think that played a role into why things started to fall apart?
It definitely played a role.
Yeah.
I don't think, knowing what I know now,
yes,
it's the worst choice to make.
Yes.
It's the worst choice to make. And I think why I ended up doing it anyway, and you're not the first person who actually asked me this, it's just the world I was living in.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, you're living in a world where there's a certain narrative, and it's like, this is how you get by in this world.
Yes. Oh, my word. Oh,
and
yes.
these are the things that are done in this world.
This is normal.
And it is normal. Just like I was saying, like, you know, real happy marriages belong to white people.
Yes.
That was in my world. That was in the world I was living in.
Yeah.
Where this was the narrative. And
yes.
so you just, you go with what the narrative is.
Yes.
You know? And so, yeah, and I made that choice out of, well, this is the world that I'm living in.
Yes.
And that advice, it is the best advice. It is great advice. It is godly advice. But is it going to work in my world?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
it's almost that narrative. I mean, one of my guy friends even said it. He was like, there are things for the Bible, and then there are things for now.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly.
That's frightening.
It's frightening. And again, knowing what we know now, it's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
But in that time, it's like there are things for the Bible and there's things for now. And we take and we pick and we choose what
like it's
will
a buffet.
Work. Yeah. What will work from the Bible, what will work for now. And then there's those things where it's like, yeah, but it was for back then. So we're So this is
I don't have to apply it. The consequences cannot be because I am violating spiritual world laws. It's just because.
Exactly.
It's just because.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember you speaking about, like, now let's leap, because we spoke about how a pastor got involved and the prophetic word that was spoken over you, and listening to other women's testimonies online, one in particular coming to mind of a woman who was dating a guy for a very long time, and a pastor came to her, actually more than one man and woman of God came to her, and then also a stranger telling her, this is not your partner, this is not the guy for you, and her just feeling like, oh my gosh, I've been with this person for so long, how do I walk away? But this is clearly God speaking, because these are completely different, these are strangers in completely different setups, completely different days, just all of them saying the same thing. So you are now, your relationship with God is stronger, and you're in the church, you are serving in the church, you are getting closer to the pastors. It's one of those nice, small, community orientated churches. So you do develop those relationships with the pastors, and somebody speaks up and says, my darling, Seats? No, my love. What was that about? What?
It actually started with the old people in the church.
It always starts
inviting me for tea.
Because now they got to break a few things down.
Exactly. So, and I always had an answer. I always had a plan. For example, being, you know what? We're black, first of all.
No, you didn't say that to them.
No, I did. I was like, we're black people.
Do you get it?
Do you get it? I was like, we're black and there are issues that come with, we don't just go and get married. We don't. And that's the thing, like in the church, and it is that simple, but it's not that simple, if you know what I mean, where they're like, my darling, listen, just come to church, let's do it before the Lord, and it's done.
And you're like, man, the way the complexity of my culture is set up.
The way my culture is set
yes.
up. Yes. It does not work like that, you know. So I was like, we're black. There's lobola, there's families, there's all these things. And on top of that, his family is not in this country. So what do you want us to do? You know? And financially, things are not set up in a way where lobola can be paid now. And no, it doesn't work like that. But listen, Kokos Banban, we're working on it, you know?
Yes.
And working on it being, we're having the discussion. He's, yes, agreeing.
But it's not going anywhere.
But not really doing anything to back up what he's saying.
So the prophetic word came, and the prophetic word being?
The prophetic word actually came near the beginning.
You are kidding me.
No, near the beginning. Near the beginning, it was probably like 2 years or just less than 2 years into our relationship. The prophetic word came. And I was beaming. I was just like,
you're thinking, oh, this is for me, huh?
I mean, this lady came beeline for us and
at a church service
and started speaking, talking about platforms, talking about this and that, and really going into it. And here I am being like, that's me, I'm Mansels. No.
So what is she saying? She's
talking about great things. She's talking about, you know, really things that are going to be taking place that are, you know, we're going to be taken to big places and all of that. But I think the deception in my mind was that I didn't realize that she was saying those things to me.
She never included him in the prophecy.
She was not talking about him.
Wow.
Because I've gone back to listen to it. And I realized right at the end, she said, brother, God's going to teach you how to cover your wife. She didn't say, God's going to teach you how to cover Tsidi.
Wow.
As your wife.
Wow.
God's going to teach you how to cover your wife. God's going to break off traditional things. God's going to this and
she
that. She
almost separated your prophecies.
Yes, she did. But in my blindedness,
yes,
I took it as the both of us.
Yes.
Because she came to the both of us. She asked for both of our names.
Naturally, because you were sitting together.
We were sitting together. And so this is what I held on to right through. And there were moments as well where I think it was just before we moved to another city, where this old lady just walked up to us in the shops and was like, you are a beautiful family. And I was like, there it is. There it is.
Yeah.
So I was just like, we're here.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, it's so funny. I was actually reading it in my diary not too long ago. And I was like, Satan,
you need your legs
cut all the way off.
Wow.
Because Satan sends people too.
But you see, also here's the thing. And I always try to get this part right. Sometimes as Christians, we try to spiritualize things, or we try to shift blame on spiritual aspects that logically, if we were to come out of our feelings and our emotions, we would have been operating correctly. And it's not even a Christian thing. This is something that could have been for people who don't identify as this. The whole point is that you can live successfully with, no, let me not say it that way. But the whole point is that we often spiritualize things that don't need to be spiritual. If you had just paid attention to what was going on, if you had just been obedient to the situation and taken it as it was, for what it was, You could have saved yourself a whole lot of heartache. With me too. I look at some of the
Absolutely.
relationships I've been in, and I'm like, if I had just listened to that inner voice, if I had just paid attention to what this person was saying and paid attention to the fact that it was not aligning with his actions, I could have saved myself a whole bunch of heartache by
Absolutely.
just saying, dude, you're clearly not into this. You don't love me. I'm out.
Yeah.
Let me go and find it. And when I look back on it, and it actually took sitting with a very prominent man of God here in South Africa, and I went into his office, and I was just talking about how men are just a problem. And he was like, you have to take responsibility.
Absolutely.
Men have treated you this way because you've allowed for it. And I sat there across from him, looking at him like, do you think God would be talking to me like this? But the answer is yes, because he's your father and he loves you, and he would tell you that, actually, my child, I tried to tell you and you didn't listen.
Yes.
So this prophecy comes at the beginning of the relationship. You choose to buy into your emotion more than what she's saying.
Yes.
And all these years later, the relationship is unraveling. And this is where I want us to land, because I think it is so important for women who are going through something similar, where they're in a relationship where it's like, I've been here for a long time, and the thought of starting again is frightening. The relationship is unraveling. You're now coming to that point where you're seeing this is coming to an end, and perhaps even emotionally you've checked out, as we all do. We leave emotionally before we physically take our bodies and say, I'm done. So the unraveling happens. The prophetic word has happened. The cheating, the lying, the reckless work, hiding from your friends, not being honest about everything that's going on, not just with the people around you, but with yourself. And now you realize it's time to get out.
Yeah. Let's go back to the pastor,
Okay.
because I think that's where it started. It was a Friday night worship session at church.
Okay.
And Holy Spirit lands, and it's quite a moment. And the pastor of our church releases a word from God. Yeah. And that word is literally what made me start to think, I've got to make a choice now.
It shifted everything.
It shifted everything. And it's almost like this burden now landed on me.
Yes.
And then from there, it's almost like it you know, like a big boulder
Yes.
that is now going to start rolling down a hill.
Yes.
That word was the thing that pushed the boulder.
Wow.
Then it started rolling.
Wow.
From there, I had some church leaders that were my mentors at the time.
Yes.
I started just really wanting answers from this guy. And I said, you know what? I really feel like we need to go and see church leaders now.
Yes.
Because I feel like you saying things
That are not aligning with
that
the
are
actions.
not aligning. That are not, yeah, that.
Yes.
That's my tongue. That are not aligning. And we really need to have this meeting and just let's see, because they came to me, the church leaders, and they were like,
What's going on?
let's have a discussion
Yes.
with the two of you and see what can happen, because what's happening is not godly. And they were right.
Yeah.
And I also felt that burden for quite a while, where I was like, we're living together and we're not married. It's not right.
Yeah.
And so we've got to make it right
Yes.
before God, you know? And dude was agreeing. Yes, let's have the meeting.
Oh.
And leaves, goes back to another city just before the meeting. And I'm like, but the meeting? No, I'll be back in time for the meeting. Okay. Fast forward, I'm sitting in the meeting without him.
He knew what he was doing.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
He was running away from
He
accountability
knew exactly
and
what he was
answering
doing. Absolutely.
to elders. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm talking 4 church elders in one room and me.
And at that point, they're saying to you, his not being here is all the proof you need.
now you have your answers. Now you have your answers. Because anyone who's serious about you would have been here.
Wow.
And it's landing very hard in that meeting. It's landing very hard in that meeting. And I went home being like, okay.
Did you cry?
Of course I did. Of course I did.
Yeah.
In the meeting and out of the meeting. They've seen me a mess anyway. So it's like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I actually don't remember. Yeah, I think I did cry in the meeting. But anyway, and then I go home, and I think it was like a few days later, I was sitting alone. I remember this day so clearly. And I was watching TV or attempting to watch TV. And it's like, it was like a sensation from the top of my head to the tips of my toes. It was like God had unplugged my feelings for him and they drained out.
My goodness.
I could feel it. Literally, it was like something that came from my head and just went down, and until through my toes left. And I was like, what just happened?
Wow.
And I was like, I think I'm done. But then there's also
your mind starts to be like, interfere.
But how are you done?
Yeah.
You know, because
yes.
And then the conversations in the head start to take place, and you know, and then from there, I had planned with two of my friends to go, and I think I was craving God does that day, and I was like, guys, please, and we decided to go to one of my friends' house that they had God does and champagne, you know, and it was while we were there, the three of us, and I just said to them, guys, I feel like I don't have feelings for this person anymore. And it was like, me saying that
was their license to just tell you the truth.
They unleashed. They were like, nope, let me tell you how I felt. Particularly one friend.
Yes.
She actually came into my life at a time where there was this false high in my relationship with this guy. So she just saw us all lovey-dovey and, you know.
Yes.
And it was a false high in all of our eyes. Came in and she just watched it literally go down and diminish. She watched me cry so many times and she just unleashed that night. And she was like, listen, he makes me sick because of all these things he's been doing. I watched you when he said he would be back on this particular day and he never came back. I watched you when he said this and this and this to you and the disappointment he caused. I watched your heartbreak over and over and over again. He makes me sick. I've seen him make particular faces behind your back when you're not looking. He makes me sick. So this day, I've been praying for it.
Wow.
I can tell you that day was hard.
Yeah.
Because it was like,
I can even see you're a little emotional.
Yeah, because it was like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. This is what people have been seeing.
Yeah.
And I've been blinded.
Yeah.
You know? Whew.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
It was the release that I needed.
Yeah.
It was the release that I needed. I think it's when I believe God came to fetch me.
My gosh.
It's like, he was like, this I can't keep watching.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it was from that conversation where one of my friends said to me, you need a retreat. You need to go and talk to God because he needs to tell you things, you know? And I took 2 nights. Funny enough, this friend of mine actually stayed in the same complex as I did.
Yeah.
So they went on holiday, her and her husband. And I'll get to them as well because they are also quite significant in this, in changing the narrative in my mind. But they went on holiday, her and her family, and she was like, come and stay at my place. Spend the 2 nights, will be gone. Spend that time with God and hear what he has to say.
Yes.
And I went, told this guy, listen, I need a time out for 2 nights. My life right now, our life is not working for me, and I need to go and talk to God about it. And I could see he was worried. He even walked me
to the house.
To the house.
To the unit.
Yeah, to the unit.
He couldn't walk you anywhere else.
Yeah.
But this day he walked you to the unit.
Exactly. I mean,
yeah.
And I spent those 2 nights, and God very, very clearly said to me, if you don't leave him now, you're going down with him. And absolutely, it makes sense now. I didn't understand what he was saying then, but it makes sense now.
Yes.
And I was like, right, that's it. And after those 2 nights, went back home. Surprise, surprise, he hadn't slept at home. And yeah.
So obviously using this opportunity to creep, because now you're at a retreat, your phone is off. Perfect. Let me get out of here.
So by the time I got back, he wasn't back from wherever he was. And he came back a couple of hours later, and I was sitting on the couch, and I was like, when you've put your stuff down, we need to talk. And yeah, he came in, he sat down, and I just said to him, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. You've humiliated me in front of church leadership. In fact, you have no idea what love is. You have no clue what it is, because you have not displayed it throughout these 7 years.
I've given, and you've taken.
All you've done is take and take and take and take and take. And I'm sorry, and by that time, I mean, he tried to act like a bit devastated. He wasn't. He wasn't. And even in him hugging me, trying to say I'm sorry,
you could feel the disconnect.
There was just no connect. I even remember saying, like, can you imagine? This is the first hug you've given me in how long? So this is a clear indication that this is done. But I could see that there was just no genuine remorse on his side. On his side, it was more of, what's my next move? What am I going to do next?
Because I've used this woman also financially.
I've used her for the longest time.
I've taken. I'm living in her house. I'm eating her groceries.
Yes.
I'm using her car. I'm doing at the beginning-ish.
At the beginning,
yes. I've all of these things, and now I'm going to have to go out there and stand on my own 2 feet as a man, which I haven't done in a very long time.
Yes.
What does that look like for me?
Yeah.
Not how is she feeling, not what does it look like for her. What does it look like for me?
Yeah.
It's survival mode kicking in.
Yeah.
I feel like we might have to part to this, because there's so many things to unpack that there's so many things to unpack. And I think the next one most certainly be about, if you find yourself in a relationship that kind of feels like it's the end and you're not sure how to get out or what's on the other side. I feel like this is where now you need your girlfriends, you need that older sister, you need that friend, or maybe even that stranger who's not emotionally invested in your situation to say, I've been through this. Yeah. This is what it looked like. This is the reality of it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, it's like movies, that when you have that moment of, I'm done, now all of a sudden you're standing and the wind is blowing and you're smiling at nothing and you're acting like, something has just come over me and this is the start of something great. No, you're still going to cry. You're still going to go through the emotions and the grief and the mourning of what it is to lose a life that you thought you could have.
Yes.
But how there is another side.
Absolutely.
How there is the other side, and it will be okay.
Absolutely. I think, I think the part 2, we should talk about the beauty after the beauty that the Lord gives us for those ashes.
Absolutely.
Because he really does give us that.
Mercy and the mercy and the grace he gives us to keep it pushing.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys stick around and tune in for part 2. It is going to blow your minds.